Our second prepared speech today is Alfonso Tomita. Alfonso's pathway is innovative planning, and he's on level 2. Is this your first speech on level 2? Or
This is my first speech, but I didn't have the resources, so I had my speech before and it adapted better to that one.
But he's on level 2. He's on his first project on level 2, which means he finished the first 5 projects of level 1, and now he's on level 2. His project is called Connect with Your Audience, and the speech title is What is Your Identity? Alfonso's introduction reads, identities are important today more than ever for individuals as well as for countries. What is your identity? Alfonso Tomita.
What is your identity? Is your identity important for you? Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, Merriam-Webster defines identity as the distinguishing character of your personality of an individual. In this era of fast and dramatic change in technology, the economy, and politics, it's not uncommon that we go through an identity crisis. Nations have identities too. When I was growing up, I frequently heard that the identity of the United States was that of a melting pot. It's been a very long time that I haven't heard that expression. Is America in crisis of identity? A lot of changes have been going on. Personally speaking, I'm in kind of an identity crisis as well. A lot of things changed this past year for me. My daughter got married, and on the business side, I partnered with a restaurant group, and now they run the day-to-day operations of the business. It's all positive, but it's still change. Demographically speaking, we all know the characteristics that describe our identity. In my case, 57-year-old, male, married, residency, USA, citizenship, Mexican. Wait, Mexican? Yes, I was born and raised in Mexico City. Next comes race, which here is when things start getting a little dicey. It used to be there were 4 categories: white, black, Hispanic, which I've been tempted to check off all the time, especially after reading the 4th category, that is Asian Pacific Islander. It sounds like I should be doing the hula dance or something. Luckily, recently, I was filling out a mortgage application form, and I noticed that the race section had been divided in 2 parts. Race had its Asian category by itself, and then on ethnicity, amazingly, they had a Japanese option. Now, if there was an option that would say Mexican software on Japanese hardware, that would define my identity perfectly. There is another characteristic of my identity that I think is important to explain. I am a 2nd-generation immigrant. What I mean by that is that my parents immigrated from Japan to Mexico, and then I immigrated from Mexico to the US. It's complicated being an immigrant once. Being an immigrant twice is really more messed up here. There is a song in Spanish that captures the sentiment of the immigrant very well. And it goes like, I'm not from here, nor I'm from there. And in my case, I'm not even from over there. So where am I from? Am I from nowhere? I don't belong to anywhere anymore. Growing up in Mexico, most of the time I was the only Asian in my class. We were kids, so there was some bullying, of course. The one I remember most was chino, chino, japonés, come caca y no me des. Which was not a big deal, really. Most of the times, my friends wanted to know more about Japan. They were mostly fascinated by my Japanese school supplies. And they would ask me, how do you say this in Japanese? Sometimes even they would ask, how do you say this in Chinese? And I was like, Chinese? But before moving to San Antonio, I lived 4 years in Tokyo. I was so excited to live and work in the country of my ancestors. But then, suddenly I realized that I looked basically like the rest of the 120 million Japanese that lived over there. They all looked like they could be my relatives. So I would explain my identity, and the first thing they would say was, wow, your Japanese is pretty good, which they meant it wasn't. So I try to pass by as a regular Japanese, but I would notice that they would see that something was off. So I went back explaining my identity and eventually learned to feel proud about when they told me your Japanese is very good. Now, I lived 18 years already in San Antonio. And since the moment I arrived, I embraced San Antonio as my home. And finally, this October 7, I would have my interview to become a U.S. citizen. So now when somebody asks me, what is your identity? I can proudly say, I am an American. Madam Toastmaster.